Going backwards to go forward. Note, there's a new section on my blog called Monica in Dialogue. Alas, I haven't yet figured out how to make this section send emails to current subscribers. So I'm posting the link for now. Bear with me until I figure it out. I will, for sure. This week is a good anniversary for me. On July 30th, when I will possibly drop this newsletter, I'll be celebrating 5 years since I moved from New York City, Williamsburg, after 27 years to Miami Beach without knowing what was going to happen. Yes, yes, we were in the middle of the craziness. It had been a couple of months or three since I was in New York and unable to go out and lead a life of tranquility because not only had the whole collective kind of collapsed into the nervous breakdown and fear about dying, but there I was already taking care of my body. In order to keep my immune system sound, I had started a protocol detoxing my body from alcohol. Not heavy drinking, but I would enjoy a good wine here and there, but that starts adding up in your liver, your gallbladder. So I did a protocol, very intense, where I lost 35 pounds. I mean, I could not tell I had 35 pounds more. They had been adding up through the years. Anyway, I did the cleans that took overall approximately 6 months. I moved here is Miami Beach, and just trusted that all will align. And it did. And here I am, celebrating. This week, I'm also contemplating what exactly is coming to a close, especially in light of the current astrology. Mars is being around the south node of the moon in Virgo, and the moon is there today. How am I really embodying this clearing, this flush that I'm doing with many things in my life now? I've been feeling sometimes a little bit sad, but it's a kind of sadness that relates more to closing cycles than literally me crying about it. It's just acknowledging that there's a big cycle that just finished. Right now, I'm walking over the bridge, Venetian Islands. I started in the last 4 months to do a very deep protocol on relating to my body in really different way. Virgo, sixth house, relates to the habits, the little things that you're not seeing, especially when you're stagnated. Stagnation. What about it? In TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, stagnation relates to the lack of movement and the lack of circulation in the blood. Therefore, when you stagnate and the circulation doesn't flow, you feel lethargic. Digestion is not flowing, you feel tired. And in a way, you start accumulating anger because the liver and the gallbladder's energy regulate the emotion of anger. And anger is a young energy that wants to come out no matter what. I've been working on that, and this week I noticed it even more because the stagnation was very deep. Therefore, there are sort of relational activities that I've been doing. I had to go deeper. I added more red light therapy. I added smooth movements in my body that include hypopressives and some fascia movement, brushing, and vibrational plate with humming, all very subtle, coordinated with long walks, short swims, and deep, deep, deep meditations and contemplations. I decided to start again Bob Monroe's getaway experience from the beginning and go up in crescendo. Having practiced it since January 2024 and seen enormous results, I'm being slightly more intentional in scope, aligned with my frequency as I comprehend dimensional relativity. So instead of formulating a plan of action, I'm slowly in alignment through instinctual magnetism and intentional emotional wavelength resonance. The next month, we will have two eclipses on the 7th and the 21st of September. And Saturn goes back to Pisces. Uranus stations retrograde. And much later, Neptune goes back to Pisces. We're going to start having horror images of all the things that we forgot to do before the big changes come in. The deadline for all the changes is February 20th, 2026. But that doesn't mean that you're going to start working on that on January 2026. This is a moment to actually look into what's stagnated. Try to make a routine or habit that will be very wholesome for your kind of frequency that needs to be realigned in your life. The other thing I want to say is 2006 was the last time the nodal axis was in the same place. Virgo, Pisces. I have to say that I went through a lot of cleansing back then, a lot of fasting, a lot of understanding the edges of my body. I believe Saturn was in Leo, going through my sixth house then. Now we have Jupiter in Cancer, same house. So I don't have to go through extreme cleanses. I don't want that in my body anymore. I just want to have an expansion of this frequency of caring, but it comes from a more adult and responsible way. The discipline is there, but it's not this blind discipline that is asking for more than it should. It's more like a wise discipline that knows how to nudge this energy. Reflection and release. If you look back into different kinds of periods, first, 5 years ago is the end of July 2020. Had you already figured out that everything that was creating the tails was designed to fulfill your fear to such an extreme level that you will comply? Had you already figured that out? Or were you still in a fear mode, hoping that there will be a cure you could take no matter what? Because for you, the freedom of traveling or just being going socially to clubs or restaurants was more important than retaining the real freedom of your body, the property of your body. Did you realize that then? Or did it take you another year, another set of vaccines, boosters, etc., another round of getting sicker without understanding why? Are you still, which I don't think, if you're still in that loop, you wouldn't be reading me. So I'm going to skip it. I don't think that any reader who has brought awareness in the last 5 years, waking up from the numbness and this program that we've been on since we were born, I don't think they will be in that loop anymore. And I don't think they will be reading this. For my intention is always to attract the souls that can interact with my frequency at that specific moment. So that's one of the questions. Now, the next question. What was going on in your life mid 2006 through 2007? What was it about the purge that you were doing? Uranus conjuncted the North Node in the same area where the North Node in Pisces is transiting now. I did get a breakthrough then. Did you? Now let's look at where this South Node is falling in your chart. In my case, it falls in the eighth house. So for me, it's really about releasing all these things in a way that I merge with it and then I evolve. It's a very full frontal release, not with fighting, but merging with it, understanding it fully, being transformed, and having a real metamorphosis in the soul act of awareness. Because what I want is to evolve at all costs. Mercury retrograde in Leo, which rules the South Node, is asking how I relate creatively to all these new habits. If you're a Virgo rising and this axis is in your first and seventh houses, you're releasing the perfectionism that shaped your identity, the habits that made you feel worthy, but now feel like costumes. Mercury retrograde in Leo here asks, can you love yourself when the system you built breaks down? Can you release control and become more creatively attuned to who you are becoming? If you have this in your fifth house, the release is around how you measure your creativity, especially through service, results, or comparison. You may realize your gifts have been managed instead of expressed. Mercury retrograde in Leo asks, can you play again? Can you move towards joy, not just obligation? If it is in your 10th house, you're releasing the image, the way you work to be seen, the performances that earned recognition but cost you energy. Mercury retrograde in Leo here is burning through the old architecture of approval. You're being asked to speak from source, not from structure. So I'm not going to go through all the whole houses. But you see, this release or this realization has more to do with the kind of awareness that comes from deep observation, at times analysis, and having the right mindset to tap into what is happening. What is it that no longer aligns and is not working anymore? And Mercury is retrograding Leon right now, ruling that south node in Virgo. Soon it will meet the sun. It is asking for inner combustion, about letting the mind burn off what's stale. It's about releasing mental structures that used to give you pride, but not just repeat. When Mercury retrogrades meets the sun, it renews, and in Leo, that renewal comes from courage, from choosing the way you want to see it, from reordering your rituals with heart. As Federico Fagin said in an interview reflecting on his shift from physics to consciousness research, consciousness cannot be a property of the brain. What was clear was that consciousness must be fundamental. This comes from the chapter 8 of Consciousness Unbound, Liberating Mind from the Tyranny of Materialism, where Fagin describes his realization that awareness is not something generated by the brain, it is the ground of being in which experience arises. That's the frequency you're listening for now. A recognition, and that's where this new part begins. What is the plan? Since Mercury is still retrograde and we have Saturn retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Pluto retrograde, and eventually we're going to have Uranus retrograde and Jupiter retrograde. For now, this is the reflection to be done for the next 6 months. Will you take some time to discern what are the things that you found very confusing and very challenging since the beginning of the year? Where you felt misaligned? What was the part you couldn't see clearly? What was it about it that made you feel that you were powerless? Now, while you do that, also look at the parts where you were able to find the discernment, to look at things as they were, and you actually created an action to leave that state of stagnation. Now, because we're going to go back to a familiar place that we are not going to love that much because we thought we already conquered the other state. This is actually the best time to look into. If you were to do it again, how would you do it this time? Remember, these are frequencies to tune into, like radio stations. Becoming aware of your breath, your sensations, and your thoughts will support opening up more aligned momentum. How will you refine those ideas? How will you refine that movement? How will you arrive at the resonance state? And once you have that, you can actually create a strategy where if you fall into fear, if you fall into fogginess, if you fall into the collective blob, you become an observer of those thought processes that tune you back into chaos. You will find a way to practice something that has kept you standing in the last few months, whether it's meditation, exercise, journal writing. I don't know. I don't really care. Find something that will anchor you. By the time the tides go back into high tides and low tides, and things seem to be moving in ways that we don't want, while visibility is negative, you will remember that the equilibrium that you find is part of a process of realigning with your frequency, a refinement. And then, by the time everything goes direct and February 2026 arrives, with Neptune and Saturn meeting at 0 degrees of Aries, that's the beginning of a new paradigm, and you will know it. So get ready, get dirty, and go for it. Just so you see the scale of what's happening, both Neptune and Saturn are retrograding back into Pisces. This is the last wave, the last return to the formless before the spark of Aries. The eclipses on September 9th and 21st are beyond just moon cycles, they're closures. Saturn will be conjunct the North Node. That doesn't happen every time. That's maturation calling your name. Whatever is dissolving now is not meant to be held. Trying harder is an oxymoron. This is about releasing the illusions that you ever had control over that storyline. You're going to go back to source to remember that your form, your will, your individuation has to be built differently now. Let the wave pull you back. Let the ending be complete. And when the time comes to move forward again, you won't be guessing. You'll know, for you will be vibrating in your own frequency if you're truly following your design. Dimensional alignment. This is a dimensional alignment taking place. Uranus entering Gemini initiates a 7 year upgrade of perception, language, signal, and design. At 0 degrees, Uranus is raw intelligence. The mind is being rewired to receive, and it could come as jolts of awareness. It's about opening up your frequency into other dimensions where you are going to be able to align with your design, not from your mind, but from elsewhere, from the electromagnetic fields that allow movement between dimensions. This is about evolution and mutation. This is about your purpose in this life as an individual. What are you bringing forth? Why are you of service? The sextile from Saturn and Neptune in Aries, both retrograde, is a coded support system for the structure, Saturn, and the illusion of what is possible, Neptune, are now internalized. They're on reflect mode. This is about self anchored alignment, about synthesizing the one you already are, that individual that you came to be. Pluto in Aquarius trines Uranus, where mutation becomes visible, an embodied experience. The future dimensions can be felt first before fully experienced. The anti vertex involvement brings a karmic window, chance meetings, old threads, unexpected messengers who reveal what still needs to be released and what is now being invited in. Mars at the Virgo Libra edge initiates a new pattern with a lot of discernment. This is a clear choice where the fire is mindful. This entire post is tracking one deep arc. It's about cleansing, about awareness, about realignment, and about preparation. And you, are you aware that you are at the threshold? If so, enjoy. Life is beautiful. Ta da! See you next week.